carpenters know this technology well. Next slide. But nobody's raising these fish in closed containment systems. And this is the holy grail, I think, for fish farming on land-based systems, is when we compete with Atlantic salmon cost competitively. We've done an economic assessment on a design for a 3,000 ton per year facility. And our production cost is competitive with Norway according to our best estimates. And that's because of the economies of scale, and it's also because Norway has costs in disease loss, pancreatic disease. Some farms lose 25% of their fish. They put a lot of money in vaccines fighting viruses. They put a lot of money in sea lice treatment to keep this parasite off the skin. And then they have a shipping cost to the United States. So really, we're looking at a situation where I think we can produce Atlantic salmon in large land-based systems competitively. And that's a 600 million pound a year industry in the U.S. 300,000 tons. Next slide. So we've done research on, this is the system that was the model for what was built at Bell, at the Freshwater. It's just about half the volume of one tank. And we've raised Atlantic salmon in freshwater, and they do fantastic. We have feed conversions of 1-to-1. Growth rates that are 9 months faster than you can raise the salmon in the net pens in Maine, because we don't have winter to deal with. They handle high densities really well. We've raised rainbow trout, Arctic char, yellow perch in this system. They all do really well. So I think the bottom line are that this technology really does work. Next slide. And the confidence in the technology is increasing. So farms like Bell are believing it. Virginia Cobia Farm, I didn't mention them because they're next on the presentations, but we're seeing investments of $5 to $25 million per project. Some of the projects are even $50 million for these large agribusinesses. And right now, we see projects in the U.S. that are either started last year or this coming year for Atlantic salmon, coho, sea bream, yellow perch, cobia, sturgeon, Arctic char, walleye, sablefish, rainbow trout. I think these projects may exceed $100 million in investment just this year. So it's a bright future, but we're right at the initial stage of it. Thank you. And next slide. Any questions? I'd like to acknowledge the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Our primary research funding has been through the USDA, and they've been a great partner. And it's with sustained funding that we can do this. It's kind of like a breeding program. If you just do a little bit of it, you don't get anywhere. You have to have continuous funding. Yeah?
How does the demand of water, I was going to ask for like a farm like this, but let's just, a more general question, I guess, because you're involved in all of this. But what is the demand per pound of, demand of water per pound of fish protein versus per pound of vegetables? Is it more?
I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but it's actually very low when we're in a closed containment system. It's much lower than even beef cattle. When you look at
with these amazing filtering systems, the water that you're using, you continue to use over and over, so it's just a matter of evaporation rates?
No, we're a little higher than that because the fish manure gets flushed. But it's quite a very tight system. I think we're around 10 kilos of feed per cubic meter of water that's added to the system. So I don't have it, but if it's a 1-to-1 feed conversion, that's 10 kilos of fish produced per cubic meter of water added. So it's pretty good.
If your manure gets flushed, where does that go?
So the manure is flushed and concentrated, and then it's applied to the field. So it's leaving at about less than 1% solid, so it's really watery. And we thicken it up to 10% or higher, and then it's a slurry that's applied to the field, just like a hog manure.
Steve, when that manure is in fact used, based on what we know with the problems with spinach, cantaloupe, tomatoes, the consistency or quality of that material when it's land-applied, are there differences that you could help us understand as far as, you know, is there E. coli in the fish fecal material once it's going into being land-applied?
There's coliform bacteria. It's ubiquitous everywhere. It's not fecal coliform. So the coliform is a broad spectrum of bacteria. It's not fecal coliform. It depends on how it's applied. So there's a lot of aquaponic systems that are raising the fish using these water and fresh produce that are going right out to the restaurants. And the microbiologists I've talked to say that the human pathogens are not present. There are millions, I think, of varieties of coliform. It's not the fecal coliform that hurts people.
Isn't it the difference between top application and flush through too that manipulates the E. coli?
I haven't seen E. coli change in different types of systems. Is that what you're saying? Like what kind of
I
system?
just think it's more readily available. I think I read a study where it's applied over the top of vegetation as opposed to flush through.
Okay.
I think what you're talking to is flush through.
Right. So it's not sprayed on top, it's
Right.
flushed through below in the roots.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a question I'm not prepared to answer very well. Thank you.
Steve, thank you very much.